Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. It's Tuesday, the patch notes have been posted, so it's time for the top 5 changes of patch 12.19. As always, I'll let you guys know what the biggest changes were on this week's patch, and let you guys know what you've been looking forward to in the coming weeks. Now, 12.19 is coming after the Worlds patch, which was 12.18. This is completely obvious, but the advantage of this is that because Riot are no longer worried about the professional season, and because preseason is just around the corner, and therefore a lot of the changes Riot make can be a little bit more free, Riot have some really spicy and interesting changes on this week's patch. So let's go ahead and start with the number 5 change here, which are all of the AP off-build buffs. I think is really the only way I can describe this, which is that you have a lot of champions like Kai'Sa, Malphite, Nunu and Willump, Rakan, Tahm Kench, Shyvana. All these champions have gotten just some really weird AP ratio changes, generally that are making their AP off-builds slightly better. Now, I think for some of these champions, Shyvana and Twitch, or Nunu, for example, the kinds of champions that historically have been able to build AP, I think that they're going to get a lot more mileage out of these changes. Champions like Tahm Kench, for example, I don't expect this to make AP Tahm Kench very good. I do think that this is going to make incidental AP that these champions buy. So, for example, Tahm Kench buying a Demonic Embrace if he's a tank top laner. That's going to be much better with the new AP ratios. I don't expect these champions to all of a sudden become mages overnight, but I also thought the same thing about Twitch when he first got all of his AP ratios added, and AP Twitch was the best way to play him for quite some time. So we'll see how these shake out, but I think they're very interesting changes to play around with regardless. These also go very well with our number 4 change, which are the Blitzcrank changes. Now, these are really weird, and they require a little bit of context to get, which is that back when Blitzcrank was first released, which was all the way back in Season 1, they were originally designed as a fighter. They were supposed to be like a top lane brawling champion. They weren't really ever intended to be this low income support that's only good for rocket grab. And as a result of this, Riot are actually trying to reintroduce Blitzcrank's fighter playstyle with these changes. They've given Blitzcrank on-hit magic damage while W is active. Power Fist has a better knockup duration and does more damage. And R now has unlimited maximum stacks from the passive, so if you have a lot of attack speed, you can add a ton of stacks to the target for then the lightning to come down and do a ton of damage. Now, these are still a little bit weird changes to me. I don't think these necessarily bring up a fighter-based playstyle, because for the most part, these just got AP ratios added, which I guess if you were going for more of an AP brawling playstyle, that would be okay, but I don't believe the W has a scaling on it. It just gives bonus damage, so I don't know then why you would build like AD fighter or AP fighter. Really, this looks more like an on-hit build for Blitzcrank, where you can just build like a Ginsu's Rageblade, Kraken Slayer, use Overdrive for that on-hit magic damage, and your ultimate for the on-hit magic damage, and just whack someone a ton after grabbing them. That seems to me to be more like what it's looking like here, but either way, I'm just interested to see how players actually use these changes, because there's just some really weird stuff in here, and I think Blitzcrank, though, in general, isn't getting punished in the support position, so they shouldn't feel any worse to play at support, but I'm interested to see if anyone tries out Blitzcrank in the top lane or jungle. I think in particular, Blitz has a very big potential to be good, so we'll see how this goes. The number 3 change here is to Eclipse, and for those of you who've been watching Worlds, you probably know why this is in the patch notes. Eclipse has become the go-to item of choice for a lot of top lane fighters, in addition to the assassins and ranged lethality users for quite some time. So Riot have put this in the patch notes. However, they're probably doing the opposite of what you'd expect them to do, and they have buffed the bonus attack damage that Eclipse gives, and have nerfed the lethality. Riot say that this is a way to reshape the item to better fit the stats that fighters would like moving forward, but keeping it as a viable purchase for assassins, and this just seems like such a weird decision-making process to me. Like, fighters already have 4 individual mythics made for them and can dip a toe into a lot of other mythic choices as well as needed. Assassins conversely only ever had 3, and realistically, because of just how niche Prowler's Claw users are, they have 2 mythics, which are Eclipse and Duskblade of Drakthar. And with Eclipse being shifted more towards fighters, assassins are going to be felt more left out in the cold, with basically just Duskblade as their item of choice. I think this is just a bizarre change. I don't know why Riot would take it in this direction. I know a lot of things are going to get shaken up with the preseason introducing new items, but this is just a bizarre change to me in the meantime. But suffice it to say, your AD top laners, they're not going anywhere. Aatrox, keep on building Eclipse, because it's going to be just as good, if not better on you, than it is currently. Moving on to the number 2 change here, and a change that I very severely disagree with, these are the Nasus buffs. Now, Riot have said that these changes are an attempt for them to buff Nasus in a similar vein to how they buffed Master Yi a few patches ago. Basically, taking a champion that's historically been good at the lowest levels of play and giving them power that is only accessible to the highest levels of play. And Master Yi, this manifested as a channeled meditate where you could interrupt it at any time, but it would drain mana over the duration, as well as being able to choose your exit location after alpha striking. I think these changes did their goal of making Master Yi still an accessible champion at lower levels, while making him very good at higher levels of play because those higher tier players can more easily use those mechanics. Nasus has no mechanics that you can actually exploit that aren't exploitable at every level of play, because Nasus is a brick wall of a stat-stack champion. There is nothing this champion does that is in any way, shape, or form outplayable, and as a result, all Riot have done is just buff Nasus at every single skill bracket. He has slightly bigger range when his Q is active, Wither has even more of an attack speed shred, and his R makes him not only scale bigger with size as he gains rank, but it also increases the AoE radius of all of his other damage. Fundamentally, Nasus is just getting buffed across the board almost, it seems, and I just feel like this is only going to turbocharge him, especially at the lowest tiers of play. If you are in Gold and below, pick Nasus after this patch because he is going to be a very strong champion. I have a very good feeling. And finally, the number 1 change on this week's patch is, of course, the Syndra Midscope update. I am very, very excited for these changes because I think they're going to give Syndra a much more reliable niche, and I think that they're going to make her a much easier champion for Riot to balance going forwards. Now, I made an entire video about this, actually, that'll have linked down in the description if you're curious, where I go into the nitty-gritty of the changes. At a high level here, Syndra is getting a brand new passive where leveling up and damaging enemy champions gives her Splinters of Wrath, basically just stacks, and at certain breakpoints of these stacks, Syndra will upgrade each of her basic abilities from Q all the way down to R, and then at maximum stacks, she gives herself a flat increase, or a percentage increase to her AP at the same time. Her Q has a longer cooldown, but now can store up to 2 charges when it is upgraded through her passive. Her E now has a much bigger AoE, and it will increase that AoE even further when she upgrades it with her passive. And her ultimate now has a new passive attached to it that grants her Q additional ability haste based on the rank of her ultimate, and when it's upgraded with her passive, it will execute champions under 15% health. I think these changes are going to really sell Syndra as a late-game, hyperscaling carry champion. She's going to be much weaker in the early phases of the game, where she's just trying to farm up her passive as much as possible. But when she hits those late-game stacks, when she hits a death cap, when she hits that extra 15% AP on top of that, she's going to be an absolute monster to deal with, and I can't wait to try her out. So that's definitely my favorite change on this week's patch, but let me know what you guys are most excited for down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video today, go ahead and leave it a like, and if you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days like today as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I'll talk to you all later.